this valley is a valley where at one point there was huge pagan worship festivals, and so on one of these ledges somewhere, we don't know for sure, it could be right here, but we don't know, they would have had a gigantic iron god named MOLECH. And this is a pagan god. It's the main pagan god that we read about in the Old Testament. And what they would have done here is they would have had this iron statue of this god sitting up on a ledge, and there would have been a pit underneath him, right in front of him, and he would have had his hands out, and the pagans would come around the date on our calendar, December 25th, and they would take their children, and they would lay their children in the hands of this god, and underneath the front of this god was a pit with fire in it, and they would burn this fire so hot that the hands of this god would be bright red, and eventually the entire metal statue of this god would become red, and they would take their children, they would hand it to their priests, and the priest would then set the child on this altar, this burning red altar, and the child on the altar, they would be beating drums and singing and dancing, and they say the reason for that is so that the parents would not hear the cries of their child as it was burning to death on this fiery red altar. And it's interesting because this is really where we get our Christmas holiday from. It's a bright red saint that we set our child in his lap, and the point of this festival that the pagans did was they would sacrifice a child to their god Moloch, because what the god would in turn do, they would have a list of their needs and wants for the year, what they thought was prosperity, and as they sacrificed this child, believed that this god would give them what they needed, would provide for them throughout the year. And so in Christmas, we set our kid on the lap of this god, this fiery red god, and the children have this list of their wants or needs, and we believe that this god gives us what we want or what we need. And so it's interesting that that's where our Christmas comes from, but yet pagan and in the Roman Catholic Church adopted this pagan festival and put the name Christ on it. And so instead of Child Mass, it became Christ Mass.
This is pagan. Look at this picture. This is the same one and the other. It's like that Christmas story where they misspelled